All right. Well, good morning again, everyone. My name is Andrew Stolfi. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the director of the Department of Consumer and Business Services and the State Insurance Commissioner. And on behalf of our agency, it's my pleasure to welcome you to our second community engagement open house event. So these open houses that we're hosting are part of the work we're doing stemming from House Bill 2167, which is the Racial Justice Council Codification Bill. So that bill directs state agencies to take racial equity considerations in their plans and actions to promote and practice social justice and fairness for underserved and under-resourced communities such as Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islander, and tribal communities. We know that we can't do this work alone, so we're asking for your help. This open house is one of many chances we're arranging to give us feedback on our work and our budget. So today's open house will start with a presentation I'll give about the agency and our budget and budget process. And then we'll have short presentations from our Building Codes Division, our Workers' Compensation Division, and our two ombuds offices. The remaining time of the open house will be a chance to ask questions, get answers, and interact with our division and agency leadership. You're welcome to stay as long as you wish and to ask questions at any time. And while today's session is going to focus on our building codes and workers' comp, you're welcome to ask questions and provide feedback on any of our programs. And I'll give some time for that after my short presentation for anyone who wants. So please do note that we're recording these sessions so that they can be available to anyone who cannot attend today. And you don't have to reach out to us only through these open houses. You can email dcbs.engagement@dcbs.oregon.gov, and that'll be in the chat, and I think you'll see that on the screen in a moment as well. And we'll make sure to route any of your questions or comments to the correct division. I also want to note that this is a new process for us, that we know we're probably not getting everything right, and that we're very open to hearing from you about how we can do this better. So before I move on, let me pause and see if there are any questions from anyone about the process or agenda for today's open house. And I think the next slide has the agenda that we're going to go through today. So I see Tonya, you came off mute. Do you have a question or comment about the process or agenda? All right. Well, just a general reminder to folks that if you're not talking to, please stay on mute. And if there are no questions, and we'll look through the chat, the team's helping me out here. We'll look through the chat to see if there are any questions that pop up. But so with that out of the way, against that background, let's get started. So I'd first like to tell you a bit more about who we are and what we do. Then, as I said, I'll talk a bit about our budget, how much it costs to run our agency, how we're funded, and how much revenue we generate for the state. And finally, before turning things over to the divisions, I'll share a little bit more about our community engagement goals and next steps. So let's start with a bit more about who we are and what we do. So DCBS is the state's largest consumer protection, worker safety, and business regulatory agency. And it's safe to say, excuse me, that every Oregonian is affected by the work we do at DCBS in one or more ways, in many instances, in ways they'll never see. This is driven by the broad nature of our mission, which has two halves, to protect consumers and workers, while also supporting a positive business climate. So this slide shows our organizational structure and the many different subject matters we are responsible for, which we generally group into three slightly overlapping buckets. So blue, that you can see there, is our worker protection system. This includes Oregon OSHA, whose mission is to improve workplace safety and health. Oregon OSHA is committed to working with labor, business, and other government agencies in pursuit of this goal. Workers go to Oregon OSHA to report a safety concern at work, learn about workplace rights and responsibilities, and learn about managing workplace safety and health hazards. While employers go to Oregon OSHA to receive help creating a safe and healthy work environment, to find online training resources, and to learn about free confidential safety consultation. Also included here is the Workers' Compensation Division. They administer and regulate laws and rules that affect workers, employers, insurers, claims examiners, attorneys, and others. The Workers' Comp Division ensures that injured workers receive timely and accurate benefits and quality medical care. The division also helps injured workers return to work through incentive programs for employers. Our two ombuds programs fit here as well. One is to help small businesses navigate workers' comp issues, and the second has historically served as an independent advocate for injured workers, dealing with the workers' comp system that we just this year expanded to also help workers protect their rights under Oregon OSHA's laws and rules. Finally, we also host the Workers' Compensation Board, which conducts hearings, case reviews, and mediation services. The board resolves disputes that arise under workers' compensation laws and the Oregon Safe Employment Act. So turning next to green, that represents our building safety system. This includes OSHA again, as it sets certain requirements related to fire safety, operations, and basic building safety for buildings that house workers. The Building Codes Division is here as well, of course. It's responsible, along with its 7 governor-appointed, Senate-confirmed boards, for adopting statewide building codes, as well as for overseeing statewide inspection systems, providing tools and assistance to local governments, and issuing plumbing, electrical, and boiler licenses across the state. Finally, yellow represents our consumer protection system. BCD is here again, as due to its role in training and certifying inspectors across the state, as well as its role as a default building department for any county that does not operate one. And our Division of Financial Regulations here, it protects consumers and regulates insurance, state-chartered banks and credit unions, trust companies, securities, and consumer financial products and services. Consumers can go to the Division of Financial Regulation to file an insurance or financial services complaint, verify a license, or learn about insurance and financial services. So that's a bit about who we are and what we do. Now let's quickly talk about our budget. So DCBS is primarily funded by those we regulate and their customers. We are a non-general fund agency, which means we do not rely on state tax or lottery or other revenue to run our programs. In fact, we bring into the general fund or send directly to other agencies, particularly the Oregon Health Authority and the State Fire Marshal's Office, much more money than we use to run ourselves. We also receive a healthy amount of federal funds to support our programs, and we actively try to maximize the amount of federal dollars we can bring in to offset the use of state dollars. The slide up now, and don't worry about knowing what all those little words are, but that just shows what our estimated revenue sources are. So that slide up right now shows our estimated revenue sources for the current biennium, which runs from July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2023. What you can see is we're expecting to collect more than $1.4 billion. What you don't see is that this is from more than 500 different fees, assessment, or charges that we collect across our programs. On the next slide, you can see that from this $1.4 billion plus we collect, we were given about $294 million to run our programs during this biennium, with the rest going directly to the general fund or to other agencies or programs, as I mentioned. Now, next slide, as for the money to fund our operations, this slide shows where it goes by division, including the number of full-time staff we've been allocated. Now, all of this is for the current biennium that we're in right now and what we've already been given. And we're speaking with you, of course, about our next budget. It's important, however, to see what we have now, because the legislature uses something they call our current service line, CSL, as the base for our next budget, and our CSL is essentially our current budget. In other words, each budget builds on itself, and we spend most of our time making a case for any increases in funding or positions from one budget to the next, or sometimes even defending against decreases from one budget to the next. Okay, so that's some background about who we are and what we do, as well as our budget. Now let's talk about our community engagement plan and why we invited you here today. So as I mentioned, the Racial Justice Council Codification Bill directs state agencies to take racial equity considerations in their plans and actions to promote and practice social justice and fairness for underserved and under-resourced communities. This work has been coordinated through the governor's office, where about 26 agencies were asked to prepare community engagement plans, outlining how they would work towards developing a racial equity impact statement, or REIS, to submit as part of its budget proposal. For this first budget cycle with this new requirement, agencies were asked to identify one program to develop an REIS for as part of their community engagement plan. From the start, however, we have looked at this as more than a budget initiative. We're using it as an opportunity to overhaul how we engage with our stakeholders, especially those from underserved and under-resourced communities. So instead of focusing on one program and developing one REIS, we included 22 different programs across 7 different divisions or units in our community engagement plan, with a goal of increasing our level of engagement across each of these programs, as my colleagues will discuss in just a quick moment. And from these 22 programs, we worked with the governor's office to choose 2 to develop an REIS for as part of this first budget cycle. Those are our Oregon OSHA enforcement program and our Division of Financial Regulation, Consumer Education and Advocacy program. That said, we want to hear from you on any and all aspects of our programs that you would like to discuss or have questions about. So to that end, before turning things over to our divisions, let me first ask if you have any questions or want to provide any feedback on any of our other programs. And other, what I mean is any programs other than building codes or workers' comp, which we'll get to next. Let me pause there and see if anyone has any questions or comments about any of our other programs. And we'll, like I said, we'll be watching the chat if you want to put a question in there, or just unmute and ask away. Okay. So as I said, open to questions and feedback at any time during the presentations. But let's right now turn things over to our Building Codes division so they can provide an overview of their program. So Alana, over to you.
Great, thank you, Andrew. I'm Alana Cox. I'm the administrator of the Building Codes division here at DCBS. Happy to be here. Next slide, please. So our mission at the Building Codes division, or BCD, is to work with Oregonians to ensure safe building construction while supporting a positive business climate. We do that work in partnership with our 7 governor-appointed Senate-confirmed boards that Andrew mentioned. Together with our boards, we adopt and administer the statewide building code, resolve code disputes, and assist local building departments. We're also the provider of local inspection services where there's no local building program. And we provide statewide boiler and elevator safety inspections. Together with the relevant boards, we issue plumbing, electrical, and boiler licenses. We also host and support the state e-permitting software, which is available free of charge to local building departments and the public. And finally, at least for this list, we issue manufactured home ownership documents. Next slide, please. So what is the state building code? The state building code is made up of the various specialty codes. So the residential code, commercial, electrical, plumbing, et cetera. And it sets minimum construction standards to protect safety and conserve scarce resources. Oregon's code is what's known as a mini maxi codes. Builders must meet the minimum standard, and local governments cannot adopt or enforce standards above the state code. This system ensures predictability between cities and counties across the state and means everyone has the benefit of a safe, efficient, and accessible code. Next slide, please. BCD's budget comes from a variety of sources and typically does not include general fund dollars. The majority of our funds come from surcharges on permits collected statewide. Those surcharges are specified for things like our e-permitting program and our training and outreach program. We also get funds from permits where we are the service provider, and the licensing program is paid for by licensing fees. Then some small percentages come from civil penalties from our enforcement program and other smaller sources. We do not have any requests for new positions or funding planned for the next budget cycle for BCD. Next slide, please. So to give you a sense of some of our focus right now, I wanted to highlight a few emerging issues in building codes. The first is energy efficiency and climate resiliency. Our code not only provides reasonable safeguards, but it is also designed to conserve scarce resources by promoting things like energy efficiency and water conservation. I'm proud to say Oregon has one of the most efficient codes in the country. And because it is a statewide code, everyone has the benefit of those efficiency measures. We're also focused at BCD on what is needed for Oregon to be resilient in the face of climate change. The best example right now is probably the next bullet on the list, wildfire. Where climate change is contributing to more extreme wildfire seasons, we are in the midst of implementing Senate Bill 762 from last year, which among other things is going to require houses in the high and extreme wildfire risk zones in the wildland-urban interface to include home hardening measures to decrease the likelihood that a home will ignite from embers from wildfires, which can travel great distances. Another emerging issue is the mobile workforce. We have seen over the last several decades that people expect to be able to move freely from state to state and pursue their careers. In our work, this means working with our boards to make sure licensure is effective, but also not a barrier to workers coming to Oregon for plumbing, electrical, and boiler work. We are doing this through expanded reciprocity and more flexible qualification rules to recognize the many paths to becoming a qualified license holder. Relatedly, the labor shortage is impacting everyone, including building to meet the demand and trying to address our affordable housing crisis. This is more of a long-term statewide issue that requires coordination with other agencies like BOLI, which regulates apprenticeship. Through our training program, we're working to expand the tent and grow a qualified, diverse inspection workforce, which is a key part of keeping construction moving safely. Finally, changing technology, including the tools we used and expanded during the COVID-19 crisis, is an area of interest right now. From remote inspections to phone apps to make inspections more efficient, we're trying to leverage technology to meet modern demands and keep construction moving. And it's not specifically on the list here because it's really baked into the cake of what we do, but the affordable housing crisis is particularly acute right now, and we work hard to ensure any new code provision that comes with a cost is really necessary for health and safety or to conserve scarce resources. Everyone should have the benefit of safe, accessible housing. Next slide, please. So I've listed several ways to engage in the work we do, including becoming a board member and engaging in the board process. Our boards are each made up of specific positions, such as a journeyman plumber on the state plumbing board, but they also have public member positions. And board membership is a great way to participate in public service and to help us deliver policies that help Oregonians. We want diverse board members to bring a variety of perspectives to our work and ensure we're properly considering any equity implications of our rules and policies. Anyone interested in board membership can apply through the governor's office, and we're happy to help you through that process. Board meetings are also open to the public, and public comment is welcome. And in general and in all the specific issues before the boards, and it's another great way to engage. There are other items on here, including rulemaking, engaging in the code process, legislative process, work groups that are put together on specific topics. But I know figuring out the best way to engage can be daunting, especially when in some of these highly technical areas we regulate. And we really want to hear how we can best serve you and how you want to engage. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me or our training and outreach manager, Steve Sims, who has been actively working on growing our engagement, particularly with underserved communities. We welcome your input and are anxious to hear what's important to you. With that, I welcome questions. I see there's one now. Great. Rosa?
Hi there. Good morning, everybody. My name is Rosa Martinez, and I'm currently representing Latino Built, which is a nonprofit organization for Latino contractors. And I have a specific question about the building codes in licensing for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and specifically wanting to know what are you guys doing and engaging and making sure that we're providing equitable opportunities for those in the trades to make sure that they're able to get their licenses. I know that in the past, one example has been that people of color have had challenges and barriers in getting their CCB license, right? And they came up with a creative way of fixing that problem so people that, could get their license, and providing that training in more than one language, right? Because a lot of times, credentials and training is only English for only English speakers, vice versa. So I'm wondering, what are you guys doing in the mechanical, electrical, plumbing trades to make sure that others are able to reach those opportunities and become licensed electricians? Because as an organization that is representing Latino contractors and folks of color, I see that there is a big gap. There is not a lot of people of color in these trades. And what are we doing to make sure that we're reaching them and that we're providing those opportunities?
Great. Thank you for the question. It's a really important question, something we've been thinking about a lot. We are working on expanding our materials in other languages, and that's an area where we know we have a lot of growth opportunity to do better. We partner with the Bureau of Labor and Industries in particular because they bring apprentices into those trades for plumbing and electrical, and so really carrying that through from apprenticeship into licensure is really important. And in addition, we're trying to create some flexibility to recognize the paths that folks might come into Oregon. This is what I was starting to get at with regards to the mobile workforce. I think we recognize there are a lot of ways to gain plumbing and electrical experience that should qualify someone to be able to sit for a test and join the trade in Oregon. And the plumbing board right now has approved rules that are in rulemaking to allow what's known as a double the hours path for plumbing, which is a really big deal to create a clearer path for plumbers to come in from other places. And also really working hard with our boards to look at international experience more closely and make sure that there's a path for international applicants for licensure. But it's an area where we know we have a lot of work to do, and really open to any ideas on how we can do a better job engaging with folks and bringing them into those trades.
Yeah, thank you for the response. And I think that you hit it right there in the nail is, engaging with, organizations such as, organizations that are really touching and helping small businesses, and really making sure that this information is reaching them, right? So what are you guys doing and making sure that this information is getting to the contractors themselves so they understand? Because, there are, workers out there that are capable and I'm sure that they qualify as, as a plumber, but they are not moving in that direction and not getting their licenses because the lack of information is not out there. It's not getting to the community. So I'm going to go ahead and follow up with you on an email and making sure that we somehow keep that engagement going. And whatever information you could give to us so we could share with our members or potential workers that are interested in becoming certified plumbers and electricians. So thank you, and look forward to a follow-up email.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or feedback for building codes?
Alana, I'd point out in the chat, Irene has a message around different languages and pointing out the Slavic and Eastern European community and other languages other than Spanish that you mentioned as something for us to look at. And I think you might have mentioned this, but you also do work really closely with the CCB and BOLI as well in kind of developing opportunities. Yes,
I'm very interested to hear that there's been something that's been working well with CCB. I'm going to be reaching out immediately and hearing more about what that is so we can copy whatever makes sense for building codes, for sure.
I'm also a CCB commissioner there, so happy to talk to you about that.
Awesome, that's great.
We'll have time after other presentations as well to come back if there are any other comments or questions on BCD. But let me just pause for another moment and see if anyone else has anything to share or to ask. All right. Well, Alana will be sticking around for the rest of the program. So if you've got another question, feel free to throw it in the chat or comment or anything else. As I said, we'll open it up to all comments and feedback after our next presentations as well. But with that, let me turn things over to our workers' comp division.
Thank you, Andrew. Good morning, everyone. Great to have you with us, joining us this morning. I'm Sally Cohen. I'm the administrator of the Workers' Compensation Division here at DCBS. And with me this morning, too, I also have Deputy Administrator Matt West. And the two of us, we look forward to sharing some more information with you all this morning about what we do here at the Workers' Compensation Division and answering your questions, hearing your feedback. Next slide, please. So the Workers' Compensation Division, we regulate and administer Oregon's workers' compensation system. Our mission is to advance a leading workers' compensation system that represents integrity and fairness for all Oregonians. Our primary customers that we serve are the workers and employers for whom the workers' compensation system in Oregon exists, but we also interact with a great many other stakeholders, including insurers, self-insured employers, service companies, medical providers, vocational providers, and attorneys. Next slide, please. As part of the worker protection system for DCBS, our core functions are around the 4 areas that you see on this slide. We ensure that employers have required workers' compensation coverage. We investigate instances where employers do not have workers' compensation insurance coverage for their employees, and we work directly with the employers to ensure that they come into compliance. We try to emphasize this through education and providing resources to employers, but sometimes we must also issue civil penalties to gain that compliance. We also ensure that injured workers are paid benefits accurately and timely. Our benefit consultants who staff our general information helpline respond to inquiries. They provide information and resources to workers and other parties who have questions about claims filing and processing requirements. We work closely with the Ombuds for Oregon Workers in providing these services to injured workers so that workers receive timely and high quality assistance when they need it. In cases where employers do not have workers' compensation insurance, we ensure that injured workers' claims are quickly referred to an assigned processor so that the workers receive the medical treatment and wage replacement benefits that they are entitled to. We have program experts across the division who provide consultation and training and education to insurers and claims processors on processing requirements. And we conduct regular performance audits of insurers and processors to ensure that they are following requirements. And we also sanction and penalize companies for late payment of benefits and other claims violations in order to hold companies accountable for accurate and timely payment and processing. We also help workers return to work quickly and safely. So we facilitate injured workers' early return to work with their employer at injury through incentive programs for employers. And we help workers who have permanent disabilities find suitable employment, either in a modified way with their employer at injury or with a new employer through vocational assistance programs, through other incentive programs and worksite modifications. And we also help quickly resolve medical, vocational, and permanent disability disputes at the lowest level possible. We provide informal resolution of disputes that are brought to us by workers and other parties through alternative dispute resolution methods, including conferences with parties and mediations to quickly resolve disagreements without requiring workers to request formal hearings. And we also issue director's orders when needed through administrative processes, again, without requiring workers to go through a formal hearing process to have a dispute resolved. For our community engagement plan, we are focusing on 2 of our programs where we have the most direct contact with workers and employers from underserved and underrepresented communities. And that's our preferred worker program and our employer compliance unit. To share more about those programs and our engagement activities and plans, as well as our budget requests, upcoming budget requests, I'd like to turn it over to Deputy Administrator Matt West. Matt?
Thanks, Sally. Good morning. I'm Matt West, the Deputy Administrator at the Workers' Compensation Division. And as Sally mentioned, I'm going to highlight 2 of our program areas that we're focusing our community engagement efforts on. Sally just mentioned our core functions, and one of those core functions is to help workers return to work quickly and safely. And one of the ways we do that is with the Preferred Worker Program. The Preferred Worker Program is a return to work assistance program that helps injured workers return to work by providing assistance for the workers and providing and offering incentives for employers who hire preferred workers. Workers assistance includes clothing, tools, and training that they need for their job, moving expenses, worksite modifications so they can work safely and perform their job and within their restrictions. And there's a number of other benefits as well. Employer incentives include a discount on workers' compensation insurance premiums, protection from new on-the-job injuries, and a wage subsidy where the program reimburses the employer 50% of the worker's wages for 6 months. Workers who use our return to work programs have higher post-injury employment and better wage recovery than those who don't use the programs. And then employers who use our return to work programs benefit by retaining their valuable workforce and reducing claims costs. This slide shows one of the workers that we helped through the preferred worker program, Josh Allison, who has been kind enough to let us share his story. So Mr. Allison was a fish biologist who had his lower right leg amputated due to his on-the-job injury. His permanent restrictions include limiting lifting, squatting, kneeling, and crawling, and then a restriction on the amount of weight that he can lift. Mr. Allison got a new job as the sales and distribution manager at Reach Break Brewery in Astoria. As part of his new job, he needed to travel to bars and brew pubs to market and distribute products. This required lifting, moving, and delivering kegs of beer, which weigh approximately 140 pounds. Our program was able to purchase a delivery van, a pallet stacker to help load and unload kegs into the van, and then a keg dolly to move individual kegs without Mr. Allison having to lift them. We also purchased clothing and tools and helped pay for craft brewing classes at Portland State University. His new employer also got a premium exemption on their workers' compensation policy and a wage subsidy for hiring Mr. Allison. This is just one of the many success stories from this program. The Preferred Worker Program currently conducts workshops for workers and employers throughout the state in both English and Spanish. So if you're interested in learning more, please let us know and we can definitely set something up. Next slide, please. The other program area I'd like to talk about is our Employer Compliance Unit, which performs the core function of ensuring employers have required workers' compensation coverage. In order for the workers' compensation system to work effectively, it's important that employers have workers' compensation insurance coverage, and that protects both the employer and the worker if an injury occurs. For the employer, the coverage ensures that the workplace injuries are covered and handled under their insurance policy, and they're not vulnerable to lawsuits. And for the worker, the coverage ensures that their claim is timely processed and there are no delays in receiving necessary medical treatment or time loss payments. The Employer Compliance Unit has the important job of assisting employers in determining whether they are subject employers with subject workers, and if so, helping them to understand how to be compliant with workers' compensation coverage requirements. In addition, the unit investigates claims that have been filed where coverage cannot be located. And if that employer is found to be subject and there's no active coverage, then an order may be issued assessing a civil penalty, and the worker's claim will then be referred to an assigned claims agent for processing. Lastly, the Employer Compliance Unit also provides training and conducts outreach in both English and Spanish across Oregon to help educate employers and workers about workers' compensation, insurance, and coverage requirements. Next slide, please. As far as our budget request for the 2023-2025 biennium, we're requesting our current service levels budget in order to continue funding the program areas I just mentioned, along with the other important programs at the division to ensure that we're able to accomplish our core functions and mission. In addition to our normal budget ask, we will also be requesting additional funding for our modernization program. If you're unfamiliar with our work processes at the division, we have a pretty old legacy system that requires a lot of manual data entry. A prime example of this is that in Oregon, insurers are still required to report claims to the division on paper forms that we then manually enter into our claims system. The budget ask will be for a couple of positions and funding to implement a new core system. This system would be the foundation for future planned modernization products that will make the work we do and our work processes much more efficient. If you're interested in learning more about our modernization program, please let me know and we can get you signed up to receive regular program updates. And I will now turn the time back over to Sally to wrap things up for us.
You can go ahead to the next slide, please. Thank you. We'd like to encourage you to be involved in the workers' compensation system in Oregon. So I'd like to encourage you to reach out to Matt and me with any questions you may have or requests for help with any part of the workers' compensation system. We're here to help and to listen. One area we would like to especially request your participation in is our public rulemaking process. We welcome broader community participation to help ensure that all voices are heard and that our administrative rules are appropriately implementing the workers' compensation statutes that have been enacted by the legislature. We are dedicated and committed to asking for community input, and we welcome all feedback to help us improve our services and meet workers' and employers' needs. Next slide, please. On this slide, you'll see that we've listed some phone numbers and emails to directly contact Matt and me, as well as the two programs that we highlighted. And we will post this presentation so you have this contact information available to you. And we are happy to hear any feedback you have for us this morning, and we welcome any questions.
I do have, hi, my name is Luis Morales. I'm basically from Latino Build, as well as Rosa Martinez. And basically I have a couple questions. So I know that normally when a worker wants to apply for time loss payments, how does that work?
Matt, you want to take that one?
Sure. So I was coming on. So if I'm understanding the question, if a worker wants to apply for time loss payments, how does that work? Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, because I know that there's a process that they have to follow in regards to either seeing a provider, making sure that making sure that the provider gives them a either time of loss or light duty sheet where they can actually either go back to work or do stay without working for several days or weeks sometimes. So I just want to find out a little more about how that process works.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, if a worker has an on-the-job injury, the first step would be for them to seek medical attention. And then, in that appointment with the doctor, like you mentioned, they may be given either work restrictions or taken off work completely. So it's important that they, file a workers' compensation claim. Their employer should provide them with a 801 form to file the claim, which will then be sent on to the employer's workers' compensation insurance carrier. The other way is a worker, when they're at the doctor, there's a form that they can fill out that the doctor would also send to the employer's workers' compensation insurance carrier. So when the carrier receives that notice of a claim and that notice that the worker is unable to work in the scenario that you mentioned, let's say they're off for several weeks, the provider sends that authorization to the insurance carrier, and they're required to issue a time loss payment within 14 days if the worker is authorized to be off of work. If they're given restrictions, then they would work with the employer to see if there is light duty available. If there's not light duty available and they have permanent restrictions, can't do their job, then they would receive time loss from their workers' compensation insurance carrier. If you have anyone that you're working with that is having issues getting time loss or has questions, there's two areas they can contact. We have a benefit consultation unit here in our division who answers questions and can help kind of guide them through the process. And then we're also going to hear in a few minutes about the Ombuds Office for Oregon Workers, who have staff available to answer questions and they can help do a little bit more than our office can, but I'll let Jennifer explain that. But that's essentially, it's the workers' compensation insurance carrier and ensuring that the claim ends up in their hands, and then they would then process that time loss payment.
Perfect. Thank you for answering that. I just have two more questions because I know that payment could be denied. I just wanted to know what type of reasons could they be behind to be denied for the time of loss, And also, I don't know if this is basically through your department or there's someone else that's going to explain this later on, but I know that SAFE, for example, sends out a package with a bunch of providers that are listed as providers. I don't know if it's SAFE or someone else, but I have seen that package where either an employer can actually go to those particular providers. Is there a particular reason for that? Is that something that they can obtain services through someone else or just particular through that package of providers?
Sure, great questions. So to your first question on why a time loss payment would be denied. So the workers' compensation insurance carrier has 60 days to accept or deny a claim. If they deny the claim, at that point, any future time loss or anything wouldn't be paid because the claim is now denied. If the claim is accepted, it all hinges on that authorization from the medical provider. And so if the worker is missing time from work because of the restrictions and their claim isn't denied, they should be receiving time loss. And so that would be something we'd encourage them to call first. They can call their insurance carrier, they can call us, or they can call the ombuds office, and we can try to help figure out, why that particular scenario, why they're not receiving time loss. As you could imagine, every claim is going to be unique in their circumstances. So it's hard to give an answer of like why every single reason why somebody wouldn't be receiving time loss. So we strongly encourage them to call us, and we can look them up in our claim system and kind of help get to the bottom of that. And then as to your second question, where SAFE or another workers' compensation insurance carrier would send a list of providers. So within the workers' compensation system, there's something they're called managed care organizations. So initially, when a worker is injured, the worker has the right to seek medical treatment wherever they want it. So, they can go to their provider, or, in some cases, they may need to go to the emergency room, but they can seek medical treatment. They get to choose where they go. If they're enrolled in a managed care organization, then the insurer would send them, like you mentioned, they would send them this list of providers, saying that they would then need to pick a provider that's in the network within that managed care organization. If there are times where a worker can request that they continue with their doctor, and there's certain criteria that need to be met for them to qualify to be able to continue receiving treatment with their doctor, they could ask that they be allowed to be part of the MCO, or so there's a process for that as well. But initially, a worker can go anywhere. If they are enrolled in a managed care organization, then they would need to choose a provider within that network.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your help, Matt.
You're welcome.
So we'll pause just another moment and see if there are any more questions. And Luis, thank you for your questions. And I think, as you saw from Matt's responses, that this is a really complex and complicated area where workers' comp is, and just really want to encourage, and we'll hear from her in a moment, Jennifer Flood, who's our ombuds for Oregon workers, just encourage anyone who's going through a workers' comp claim or a situation to reach out to us to ask some questions and get some answers. I see, Matt, there's a question in the chat. Do you have a link to what the process is to stay in their own network? This is for the MCOs. Sally or Matt, do you have any information that we can provide around that?
I'm not sure we have a specific link on our website for that, but we can definitely post information about that process. There is a process for that, but I don't know if that's currently posted on our website or not. I will have to double check that, but we'll post that.
Thanks, Sally. I was having.
I knew you were having mute problems. Yeah. Thank you, Irene. That's a very good question to ask.
Great. So it sounds like Sally will if that's not on our website, we'll add some info for that. And Irene, I'm sure we've got your email from this to send you that information directly as well. All right, any more, we'll have time again at the end to come back for any more questions. So I'll just give another moment to see if anyone has any right now for Sally or Matt. All right, not seeing any. Let's now we've been talking about her, so let's let Jennifer Flood give a little bit of an overview about what her office does. So Jennifer, over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Flood. I'm the Ombuds for Oregon Workers. Our office was previously known as the Ombudsman's, now I can't say our old name, that's crazy, the Ombudsman Office for Injured Workers. But as Andrew mentioned earlier, our services have been enhanced as of January, so we changed our name to the Ombuds Office for Oregon Workers. Our office is part of DCBS, but we are separate from the other divisions. I have 5 assistant ombuds, sorry. They take 600 to 700 inquiries a month from workers, and 2 of our team members are fluent in Spanish, but we also use language link services to communicate with all languages. We are independent advocates for workers, helping them understand their rights and responsibilities within the workers' compensation system, as well as workplace safety and health protections. Our services can be confidential. We are not attorneys. We can't represent workers through any of the processes, but we do help resolve concerns informally and help workers navigate and understand the formal dispute process if that's something that is going to be needed. For issues, as you all can imagine, workers don't compartmentalize their issues that they have. It's not like, oh, okay, I'm going to talk about workers' comp here, and I have these other issues. When folks call our office, we take them as a whole. And if they have needs for services that fall outside of workers' compensation or workplace safety and health, we do our best to provide resources to them so they can address some of those other issues that they may be having. Some of the most common issues that our office gets questions on a daily basis is medical services. I wasn't surprised at the questions that were raised. Access to medical services is a big deal in the workers' compensation system. Many providers will not accept Oregon workers for workers' compensation, even if they're an established patient. But to address a little bit of the what about the employers and the worker's choice of attending physician, it's important to understand that employers, insurers cannot direct care. They cannot tell the worker you have to go to a certain provider. It is the worker's choice. If they do get enrolled in a managed care organization, the MCO is required, and the insurer, to send the worker the list of providers that they can choose from. But the MCO and the insurer can't say, this is the list and you must go to this one doctor, okay? The list has to provide adequate representation for the worker to be able to choose their medical provider. There's another provision that gets a little complicated, and it's a come-along provision for a worker who gets enrolled in a managed care organization where they have that opportunity of bringing their own provider along with them, but there are restrictions to that. Another thing regarding medical services and MCOs, since the MCO question was asked, is that once a worker is enrolled in an MCO, even if the claim has not been accepted at that point, the insurance company is required to pay for those medical services that are related to the claimed condition, which is one reason why many insurers do not enroll a worker until the claim is actually accepted. Claim filing is a big question every day. Hey, I was hurt. How do I file a claim? My team of assistant ombudsmen deal with this question every day, helping a worker understand how to file the claim, getting the 801 form from their employer, and if that's not possible, doing it through the provider and filing that claim, ensuring that there's workers' compensation insurance in place, and letting them know the process if it is not in place. With that in mind, a worker always has that right to file a claim, and even if an employer does not have Oregon workers' compensation insurance, the claim gets filed, and if it's determined that employer should have had insurance, then the claim gets processed by a processing agent that the department contracts with to process those claims. Claim filing, there's timely issues in our statute. So if a worker is told, hey, you've got to file that within 90 days, well, if it's the 95th day, the worker still has the right to file that claim. It's up to the insurance company to determine whether or not it was timely filed or not. Accurate and timely benefits is another issue that is very common, wanting to make sure that they're getting accurate benefits, but also timely benefits. One thing to keep in mind is that if an insurance company denies a claim within the first 14 days, there is no time loss that is due under our law. But if they don't deny the claim within 14 days, if time loss is authorized, the insurer does have to pay time loss at least until the time that the claim is denied. And of course, if the claim is accepted, those authorizations continue. Litigation is another area. We strongly encourage legal representation anytime a worker is going to need to formally challenge a decision. We do help them navigate that system, provide some resources for obtaining counsel. We can't make an attorney take a case, but we do strongly encourage that representation and provide assistance to the worker through that process when they have questions like, hey, I got this notice. I haven't heard anything. Can you let us know what's going on? We do a lot of facilitation communication back and forth between the worker and maybe the insurance company, or looking in our system to see what has been scheduled, what hasn't been scheduled, to help answer some of those questions for them. The other issue is some issues that are related to the employer. Workers many times are fearful of filing a claim. We explain to them their rights. We don't make a worker do something that they don't want to do. We just want to make sure that they're making an informed decision and understand what those rights and protections are that they do have under our law. What was the other thing? Oh, our recent outreach. We do outreach throughout the year. Pandemic obviously kind of put a crunch in that, but we've been back out there. More recently, we actually attended a farm worker event in Hermiston that was well attended. And I did a workers' comp 101 training to a group of clients at a work hardening physical therapy facility. The facility had called and said, hey, we've got these workers, they come in and they do this training opportunity for them on a variety of topics. That was actually well attended and a lot of questions from that. And currently I'm in Pendleton, and I was attending the Oregon OSHA Safety Conference here in Pendleton, talking with risk managers, workers, employers, anybody and everybody that was attending the conference that had questions regarding workers' compensation and workplace safety and health issues. I don't think there's a slide. Oh, there's a slide for our general information. I'll put in the chat my direct information. And then if you have any questions or concerns, or you want to contact us for assistance, please do so. We do offer individual assistance as well as training to groups. If you have a group of folks you want us to come out and just have a chat with, whatever you want to talk about related to workers' comp and workplace safety. So any questions?
Ms. Cruz, I am Lorenzo Preciado from the Consulate of Mexico.
Hi.
Thank you for your presentation. Really, it's interesting for me. It's the first time I listen about these works. It is important, the ombudsman, for any community. In special, I would like to ask about the Mexican people. In your opinion, in your office, do you know is some they have some experience or register that the ombudsman office has registered some problems with the Mexican documented or undocumented workers?
Yes. Yes, thank you for the question. Maria Venegas, she's one of my senior assistant ombudsmen. She worked with the consulate quite a bit and has for a number of years. And we do, I mean, we don't have any regulatory or formal function through that process, but Maria is very experienced with all of the issues that are surround the documentation issues and some of the fears and concerns that workers may have regarding that. And I encourage any of those workers to give us a call, get to talk with Maria Vanegas. I also have Jackie Hernandez. She's a little newer to our office, but is still a very valued team member and is doing a lot of great work for our communities.
Thank you, really. I appreciate it. Again, congratulations for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Luis again from Latino Build. Question. So hear about someone that just joined a particular company, right? And I believe they have about, fairly new to the company. They just got injured, basically to medical, basically just because, and they're wondering if they have to go through if they could go through their insurance, and to avoid any problems with the company just because of the fact that they're new. Is there any information in regards to that they can be, represented and without fear, seek medical treatment?
Okay, your audio was cutting in and out, and I don't know if it's on your end or if it's on my end, but let me recap what I think the question was. For a worker that has been injured on the job, but they don't want to go through the workers' comp system because they're fearful of their employer getting mad at them and whatnot, and they have health insurance, and they just want to put it through on their health insurance, right? Okay, so very common question. Okay, what we do in our office, our typical answer is you have the right to do whatever it is that you want to do. What we caution workers in doing, putting something on workers on their health insurance, is it's shifting a cost that should be in the workers' compensation system. Okay, so this is one of those examples where we want to make sure that the worker is making an informed decision. There have been times where workers have said, you know what, I'm just going to say it didn't happen at work and I'm going to put it through my health insurance. However, we do caution, because health insurance companies will do some digging. And if they determine that it was related to workers' comp, or feel that it even might be related to workers' comp, they're going to push back and not pay. That creates can create hiccups in treatment services for that worker during that time until it gets straightened out. I don't know if that, does that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Jennifer, thank you for that very much. You're sticking. I know you're sticking around, so if folks have more questions, they can certainly ask that at the end as well. And just again, stress what you and your team is there to do, and all the great work that you do. And your contact information is there on the screen. So please, anyone, reach out. Also add that Sally and Matt added some links to our website in the chat on the Ask Go question. So there's a little more information in there in response to the question we got earlier. So with that, let's turn it over now to David to talk a little bit about his office. It's the last office we're going to talk about, and we'll, as I said, open it up to any more questions or comments. So David.
Good morning. My name is David Waukee, and along with my associate, Caitlin Bradbaugh, we serve as the Small Business Ombudsman for Workers' Compensation Insurance. Caitlin also splits her time between my program and the Preferred Worker Program because there are a lot of opportunities where her expertise can serve an employer in both capacities. Workers' compensation is a very complex system from an employer or business standpoint, and there are lots of moving parts. And it can particularly be very confusing to new employers. So we field a lot of questions from entrepreneurs or new employers about, do I need workers' compensation insurance? And for the most part, if you have one subject worker, you need workers' comp insurance. And of course, naturally, the next question to that would be, well, now that I know I need to have workers' compensation insurance, how do I go about buying workers' comp insurance? And we can help our constituents and guide them through that buying process, because it can be complicated and intimidating. We also get questions about disputes. And so if you have workers' comp insurance and you have a dispute with your workers' comp insurer, generally speaking, those are problems related to premium disputes. They feel like they're being overcharged, or maybe they've been canceled and they don't feel like they were fairly notified, or they were unfairly canceled. They would contact our office and we can help them with their dispute. So as an employer advocate, we can guide our constituents through both formal and informal avenues to help resolve their disputes. From a formal standpoint, we have a process where a business can appeal their premium through the Office of Administrative Hearings, and we can help them through that process. We also have a committee that meets on a quarterly basis called the Oregon Review and Advisory Committee for Workers' Compensation Insurance, for which I'm the chairperson. And each quarter, if there are appellants who seek relief because feel like they've been misclassified on their workers' comp policy and overcharged, we can help them appeal to the Review and Advisory Committee. And that committee is made up of insurance representatives, a small business owner, and a representative from a public entity. And we can certainly guide them through that process if they choose to appeal through that avenue. We also conduct outreach and education. We partner up with the Construction Contractors Board to make sure that newly licensed CCB contractors understand what their rights and responsibilities are in the workers' compensation world. And we also participate at business fairs and collaborate with different business organizations that serve communities throughout Oregon. We also welcome any suggestions that you might have on how we can improve our outreach to the underserved and underrepresented communities in Oregon. With that, I welcome any questions that you might have.
Thank you, David, so much for that info, and your contact info is there on the screen as well for anyone. So let's see if anyone's got any questions for David. All right. Well, we've provided a whole lot of information today, and this recording and the slides will be available on our website if anyone wants to come back and take a look at them or share them with others. So let me, at this point, see if anyone has any other questions or comments or feedback they'd like to share with us on the programs we talked about today or on any of our other programs. And feel free to use the chat or raise your hand or unmute. Okay. Well, we've had this scheduled for, we've got another 50 minutes or so that we'll be sticking around in case anyone wants to ask any questions or anyone else shows up. But for those who are here, let me thank you again so much for joining us today, not only for being here, but for the great questions and feedback you provided to us. Remind everyone that we're open to feedback, not only in our programs and our budget, but this process and how we're doing in seeking your feedback and comments and questions. You can provide that to us at any time. That's the dcbs.engagement@dcbs.oregon.gov email, which is in the chat there and on our community engagement website. There you go. It's on the screen there as well. We do have a webpage all around community engagement where all this information can be found. And there were also a lot of individual emails and phone numbers shared as part of this slide deck. And you are very welcome to reach out to any and all of those people at any time with any questions or feedback that you have. So with that, let me thank everyone again. Thank the team for presenting and answering questions. As I said, we're going to hang out here off camera and on mute in case there are any questions in the chat or anyone wants to ask a question or provide any feedback. But we'll probably end the recording in just, oh, there, Rosa, I see your hands up. Please go right ahead.
Hi, Andrew. One last question, and I guess, and this is to all the departments that just presented today. I guess one of the biggest questions for you guys is, I know that you guys presented the budget, and I wanted to see if within your budgets, if there's any set aside money that you guys have proactively set aside to make sure that the consumers, the workforce, the businesses get the information in a accessible way, that you're actually budgeting for making sure that you're getting as much as community engagement as possible.
That's a great question. And I could talk about how we do that broadly in a moment, but let me open it up to Alana and Sally and Matt, if you want to share anything about how you go about that and what you have set aside within your specific divisions.
This is Alana from Building Codes, and thank you for the question. You know, I was just talking to Steve here, our training and outreach manager. We're engaged in strategic planning right now, and as I said, we're not making any budget asks for this next biennium, but really what we're looking at is reprioritizing the budget we have. And we've been talking about, we know we want more bilingual staff. And so as vacancies coming up, being strategic about asking for bilingual qualifications and what kinds of people would be best for engagement, and then also in our materials. But we've been doing that with existing budget authority. But I think it's a good consideration as we're looking at the next budget cycle.
Thank you. This is Sally Cohn from the Workers' Compensation Division. I agree with Alana. That is a very good question. We have been doing the similar kinds of work in the Workers' Compensation Division on our two programs where we're actively trying to do more outreach and engagement. We are doing that with existing funds that we have right now, but looking for how we can use our existing positions better to engage with folks. And that will be part of the team's their charge and on both sides is to engage with our customers and how can we do this more effectively. So we're doing very similar activities.
And I can add to that. One, it's thanks for the question. You know, we, as Alana and Sally said, we approach that work as part of our existing work, and I don't think our budget specifically separates out the portions of our work, not only in divisions, but we've got a communications section that's kind of centrally located within the department that assists all the divisions and all the units. And you know, we can look as to how we can kind of call out specifically in our budget some of this. And the one other thing I would add to that, and you know, she's on this meeting right now, Ruth Kemi is the head of our Multicultural Communications Office, and that is a separate part of our agency. It's part of the comms team, but she and her role is there specifically to engage with different communities, non-English speaking communities especially, and about the services that we offer, about what we do and how we're here to help. And so that is one area that is specifically, well, maybe not specifically called out in the budget, but it is part of our budget that is specific to just what you asked about. So Rosa, any follow-up questions to that?
No, I really appreciate everybody responding to my questions. I mean, definitely, we could go on, but I do appreciate you guys looking at your budget and making sure that if you really wanting to get some more engagement, that there is a budget for that, because you can't continue to do what you're currently doing with no funding. I mean, if you really want to get engagement, you have to look at everything, and you have to put some money there. Because we're talking about two different audiences. We're talking about, the consumers, and we're talking about small businesses, and how do we reach those two different types of, industries, right? So there's different things that need to happen. And one of them is, and I'm speaking on behalf of our members, that I have within our membership about 200 businesses and all Latino contractors that have various different needs, and making sure that you guys are engaging with organizations such as ours to make sure that you guys are providing that information, doing some, trainings or workshops in a language that they understand, and that we're the, in between bridges between, making sure that you guys are providing the information to them. So, there's a lot more to do. I'm going to put my information in the chat, and hope that you guys would reach out and learn a little bit more about Latino Built and what we do, and ways that we could collaborate together to make sure that we're putting information out to everybody out in Oregon.
Thank you, Rosa. We'll definitely be in touch to follow up, and I really appreciate the really specific recommendation for change that we can, I think, hopefully pretty easily, but regardless of how easy, we can incorporate that into our budget ask. So thank you for that. All right, I see Irene. Irene, you have your hand up as well.
Good morning. I just wanted to thank Rosa for all that she said about the needs of her community, and I love the work that Latino Built is doing. And I wanted to follow up and share a little bit about also the Slavic, Eastern European, and Ukrainian community that resides in Oregon. And all of the things that Rosa shared are, that's what the Slavic, Eastern European community is experiencing as well. And I think what's really important is to be more aware of the bubble that some of these the Russian, Slavic, Ukrainian community are in. They're not necessarily reaching the information through mainstream media, and so we have to have strategic and culturally relevant, linguistically appropriate outreach material. One of the best ways to reach the community is to be on Russian radio, because that reaches such a broad part of the community between Washington and Oregon. And I noticed that there wasn't a whole lot of funding that I saw that was, going to the diverse community. And maybe it's our fault, maybe it's the Slavic Eastern European community not being organized enough to show up and ask. And I also wanted to add that right now, with the conflict happening on the other side of the world, the impact here in Oregon is that a lot of immigration is happening. We have a lot of new arrivals from Ukraine, and they face so many different challenges. And one of the things that we talked about here is support with people so that people can get ready to work, and the resources that would be required around that. So thank you. And I'll put my contact information in the chat as well in case anyone wants to follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Some good ideas there, and I believe we do engage in some of the things that you were talking about. I know Ruth is on the line here. I don't know if there's anything you can add about some of the specific outreach that you do to those communities.
Good morning, everybody. My apologies. My camera is not working for some reason. I am on the meeting, and so my apologies for that, for not being able to see everybody. But I do thank everybody that is here today. I see many of the consuls from the Consulate of Mexico, as well as the ambassador Ambassador Kesnel from Mexico. I see everybody here, and I am really happy you are joining us. I thank you for that. One of the, I should say that we not only do outreach in Spanish, but we also do outreach in Vietnamese and Russian as well. We have done many, we have offered many materials in other languages upon request. So whatever we are asked to provide from other communities, we do it all the time. We have an interpretation service line, as one of my colleagues mentioned, that we can serve anybody in any language that is necessary. We have contractors that provide, our contractor for interpretation services provides, can provide interpretation in 240 languages. So you can imagine we are able to provide services to anybody. Irene, thank you for your comments. I really appreciate you bringing this up about the Russian and Ukrainian community. We do a lot of outreach in partnership with AFISHA. We have monthly publications in AFISHA and the Slavic newspaper, Slavic family newspaper. We have radio programs as well as multiple materials translated into Russian. And we are in the process of updating our website. There's a whole website that is going to be, we have some materials now that are in our website just in Russian. We have a Russian website for DCBS, and we are in the process of updating it and making more materials, more information available. So please do visit us. We will put, I think, no, the best thing is if you just go to our main website, to the DCBS website, you will see the options for other languages. And I will also put the website on the chat. And yes, please feel free to email me with any questions, any requests that you have for translations, for interpretation, for any presentations that DCBS, any of our divisions can do to your communities, to the communities you work with, and we can arrange that for you. I work really closely with the consulate, and we are in constant contact with them. This coming weekend, we have an event here in Portland on Saturday, and at the end of the month, we will be in Redmond and all of that. So we are in constant contact with the community, but we appreciate any other opportunities that we might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth, for sharing that very much. And hopefully, as you can see, we are working really hard to get out there and reach the community, especially hard to reach in vulnerable communities. But we also do recognize that we have more work to do, and we can do that work better. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. But thank you, Ruth, so much for sharing that information. And Mr. Kusnell, I see you've got your hand up and provided some really nice feedback in the chat. So thank you. But over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I'm the head consul of this, the Consul of Mexico in Portland, and I don't want to repeat my message that I just wrote. I really want to thank you for the opportunity to be here at the presentation, this very comprehensive presentation that helps us to understand the great job that you do as DCBS. We are certainly working hard on behalf of the Mexican and Latino community. and we have always have your support. And particularly well now, I want to thank Ms. Ruth Kemi, who has always been in our consulate working with us for years, and always being present at the mobile consulates in all over the state. And I hope that we will be able to strengthen our collaboration. We are waiting for some training sessions that we would like very much to have from you to our staff, so that we are better prepared to convey these messages to our people. We receive here at least 120, 150 people a day, and then throughout our mobile consulates and other exercises, we spread the word about the work and the resources that you offer. So thank you again, and we appreciate it very much. We are part of this group.
Thank you for that very much, and we very much appreciate the partnership and collaboration with the consulate. I remember prior to COVID, I was able to join a few events that we held together, and I really look forward to doing that again. And we'll definitely make sure Ruth continues to be very, very involved in that work. I know how important it is for us, but thank you very much, sir. Okay, let's see if, again, thank you everyone so much, especially for all the feedback and questions. We'll see. Like I said, we're going to stick around until 12 to answer any questions. We'll see though, and you're welcome to leave at any time, but I'll see again if anyone has any more questions or comments or feedback for us.
Sorry, guys, it's me again.
Please.
So I really appreciate the effort here, and I know that we're trying to get as many information as possible to other communities that speak other languages. But I just went on your website, and it does have a way to clicking on Spanish, but it's on the landing page. Everything's translated in Spanish. You click on one section, and on that information, it goes back to English. So we're not actually reaching the communities that we're wanting to reach. So those are the things that I'm saying that, you know, it takes some planning and it takes some money to make sure that those websites are actually functional and that people are getting the information that they need. I mean, it seems like the landing page has some information in Spanish, but beyond that, everything's back to English. So just wanted to bring that comment back to you guys, to making sure that that's very constructive feedback at just one example of what needs to change.
Thank you, Rosa, for that feedback. We'll take that back as a team and talk about how we can improve not just Spanish, but all our language translations. But thank you for the specific feedback. Absolutely. Okay, anyone else? I've been looking in the chat. There's no more kind of questions in the chat. Thanks again, everyone, for your comments and questions in the chat. Well, as I said,
Director Stolfi.
Yes,
sorry.
please.
I am Lorenzo
Yes.
Preciado again from the Consulate of Mexico in Portland. Yeah, I have a question, or special. I would like to know, for instance, how to refer, or when can we refer to the Division of Consumers and Business Service some complaints from the Mexican people, because sometimes we receive, for instance, complaints that one constructor, owner of constructions, the company don't obey the leasing contract, and then the people have some complaint. I don't know, in that situation we can refer to your office, or in which situation we can refer to your office when the people have this kind of problems. Mm-hmm. Can you explain me a little to give one a proper orientation to our people?
Absolutely, and while I'm doing that, I'll ask the team to throw some email addresses and other links in the chat. But so I'd say generally speaking, yes, anything that's related to any of our subject matters, you and everyone else is very welcome to send to us. And even if it's not something that maybe we directly regulate or oversee, we know who to send it to, whether it could be the CCB, the Construction Contractor Board, or a federal agency or something else, we'll know where to send it and how to refer that on. And I'd say, we have a general email address and web link, which we'll put in there. Or if like, oh, this is a construction and building related questions, BCD would have either a general email, or Alana has shared her email address and the teams as well. So I'd say, yes, anything that's related, or even you think might be related, or if you don't know if it's related to one of our programs, to send that question to us, whether to our general DCBS or to a specific division. And if it's not something that's ours, we will get it to the right place. And I see the engagement. Yeah, absolutely. So someone put the engagement email in there. That's for kind of this project. There is also, and I'll look for it as well, a general DCBS inquiry. So if it's something about one of our program areas, it could be insurance related or building codes or anything else where you can go. But our website has links and general questions, email links as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, anyone else? And Alana, I see Alana did put her name and email in the chat as well. And there's the general, someone put, thank you very much, the general DCBS email, dcbs.info@dcbs.oregon.gov. Any general questions or inquiries can go there and they will then get to the right place. All right, any more questions or comments? All right, as I said, I'll shut my camera off in a minute, but we'll be sticking around in case anyone has anything else they want to share. But let me wrap up and just say thank you again to everyone so much for being here, for spending time with us, for listening to us, and especially for providing us some really great questions and feedback so that we can take that and improve what we do and how we do it. So thank you, everyone. We'll probably end the recording now, but as I said, stick around in case anyone has any more questions or comments. So thank you, everyone. Please have a great rest of the day.